It's time for the Ruffin Wrestling Show. Here's your host, Michael Ruffin.
You're soft, you slop.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ruffin Wrestling Show. Hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. Apologize for my cell phone there real fast. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. I just finished watching UFC 200. I know I don't talk about UFC on here too often because, well, to be quite frankly, I'm not that big of a UFC fan. I like it. I enjoy it. If it's on, I'll watch it. But a lot of times, unless there's just a fight that I've really been looking forward to, I don't go looking for it. Like, for instance, with this one, UFC 200 was going to be a huge event. So I wanted to see it. Then Brock Lesnar came back. I'm like, all right, well, I definitely want to see it now. Brock going back to UFC after, it was close to 5 years. They said tonight I think it was 4 years, 6 months, and 9 days since his last fight in the UFC. So I definitely wanted to see that. I'm a big fan of the women in UFC. I constantly tell people that I think the most exciting parts of UFC are the women's bantamweight. The women's bantamweight division is the most exciting part of the UFC, and that was, very true again tonight. If you watched it, I thought it was an okay event. I thought it was all right. The undercard matches, almost all of them went to decisions. So everybody went the distance tonight. A lot of fights went the distance tonight. 2 matches on there that I think a lot of people were looking forward to, but to me were just kind of a big snooze fest. Just falling asleep right there in Buffalo Wild Wings. Was the Josie Altidore match. I thought that one was just kind of boring. I felt like I was watching a Floyd Mayweather fight where, Altidore really just played defense most of the time. He got in some shots. He did get some offense in there. But for the most part, he just jumped around and dodged, which, I guess that's a good strategy to have. I mean, if you're not getting hit, then you're not going to get knocked out, So he won by decision. And then we had another one that was the controversial match, was the Daniel, what's his name? I can't remember his name, and Silva. There we go. Sorry. Like I said, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm very tired. So, but I thought that one was, again, that one was just kind of that one was boring. You had a guy who was out of his weight class. It was a mismatched weight division match. Silva, definitely fighting underweight to his challenger, and the crowd really booed a lot in this one because Silva spent a lot of the time on his back and just losing that advantage to weight, and just he couldn't get any good shots in. And like I said, he spent a lot of the match on his back. They stood him up twice just because, like I said, the crowd was just booing this match. They were booing this fight like crazy. So they had to stand him up. Like I said, they stood him up twice, and of course, Altidore loses in the decision. The big match I was looking forward to, of course, was Brock Lesnar and Mark Hunt. I knew this one was going to be a slobber knocker, and quite frankly, it was all Brock. All 3 rounds, Brock to control most of the fight, especially at the end. He got Mark Hunt. Took Mark Hunt down a couple of times, especially in that last round, though. Took him down early in the third and stayed on top of him and just pounded away on him. I honestly thought it was going to get stopped and that Brock was going to win by TKO, but he didn't. He went with a decision, won unanimous decision. Brock wins it. UFC 200. They asked him at the end what this meant going forward, and he didn't. He kind of dodged the question and kind of left it open because this is something that I've thought about, and I think I've talked about it on the show. So I thought about this, and that is that the dream, the dream scenario for Brock is to work part-time between UFC and WWE. Now, what you do is you take his contract. You can pay him the same amount of money. Doesn't have to take a pay cut. Doesn't lose any money. But what you do is you take him and you say, all right, well, you got to pay to play. You got to play to pay. or pay for play. So you make his contract the same amount of money, but you just divide it up amongst the dates that he's got to meet. And then what you do is, if he makes the match, he gets his full payday. Win or loss, doesn't matter. If he doesn't make it because if he gets hurt, that's his own fault. Maybe, I don't say take all of his money, but he gets maybe 30% of what he was supposed to get. So it makes Brock eligible to go and do UFC or come back and do WWE, just really what he's feeling at the time, and it keeps him getting paid. And if he does a match or he does a fight, then he gets paid. If he stays home or he's hurt, then he doesn't. It's just so he works it out, and I think it's a great deal for Brock. It keeps Brock in the UFC, it keeps him in the WWE, and it keeps him busy, if that's what Brock wants to do. Now, who knows? UFC 200 might have been a one-time thing for Brock. He may never get back in the octagon again, which, if that were to happen, that's fine. I think that's fine. But honestly, I enjoyed watching him fight tonight, and I would like to see him do a little bit more. So hopefully, whatever contract they've worked out with Vince, we'll get to see Brock do some more UFC. But Brock wins by decision. Your main event tonight, Miesha Tate tapped out in the first round. She pretty much got destroyed by Nunes. It was very ugly. It was almost like watching one of the earlier Ronda Rousey fights, where Ronda would just get in there and just beat the shit out of him and slap the armbar on and get a tap out first round. That was very similar to what happened tonight. Nunes just really got the best of Tate, busted her open and just kicked her ass all over the octagon. Finally put her in a choke and got her to tap. So Nunes, your new bantamweight women's champion. So I think that's pretty exciting. All in all, I give the event a 7.5. It was pretty okay. Undercard was good and solid. Matches were good, just outside of the two snooze fesses on the main card. They were just two nap events. Like I said, I was at Buffalo Wild Wings watching the event, so I couldn't sleep or turn it to another channel, So, plus with UFC, you never want to do that because you never know what's going to happen. But anyway, this is the Ruffin Wrestling Show. I've talked about UFC for the first 7 minutes. So, like I said, I don't talk about UFC on here. The next time you'll hear me talk about UFC is for UFC 203 when Punk, knock on wood, makes his debut. So we'll see what happens. That'll be the next time you hear me talk about that. But let's talk about some news. This is going to be more of a news, and then the Ruffin Rumor Roundup. We'll talk about some things that are out there, whispers of things, and we'll kind of look at the legitimacy of them, and maybe weigh in on a few opinion pieces on that. But first, news-wise, is that news out is John Cena is going to be actually cutting down his schedule, especially at least on the house shows, and he's not going to be wrestling really full time. This is something I've seen kind of coming for a while. Cena is getting up there in age. He doesn't need to work full time. The guy is a great actor. He does great in movies. He does really good when he hosts on like the Today Show or with Live with Kelly Ripa. He does great on these kinds of things. And I've always kind of thought that in the next year or two that Cena would take a backseat to wrestling and would go and do more movies, more appearances, more hosting. He's hosting the ESPYs this year. And I felt that that's a good thing for Cena to do in an older age. And that's just something I feel that shouldn't come as a surprise, that he's going to be backing off, especially at least on house shows, and not working as full-time. Now, I don't think his TV schedule is going to be affected by this. Wherever he goes in the brand expansion, wherever he goes, he will do a good run there. But when you think about it, that's only one date a week, and instead of maybe 3 or 4 or more a week when you're doing all these house shows and all the traveling. So if all he's got to do is travel for TV, that's great. Now, this will, of course, make attendance possibly on house shows suffer. Notoriously known, WWE is notoriously known for, at house shows, if Cena is not there, announcing at the very beginning that John Cena is not there, nor will he, and he will not be appearing. And if you want a refund, then you have to go in the first 15 minutes of the event to get that refund. Because, like I said, a lot of people bring their kids to see John Cena, and now they've got the new era guys. You've got your AJ Styles, your Seth Rollins, your Roman Reigns. You've got these other names that kids are really getting behind and families are getting behind. So possibly it won't affect it at all, but I think this might see a dip in house show attendance if Cena's not working so much. But, I think it's great that he's going out and kind of doing his own thing, and he's making the Cena brand, and he's doing something other than WWE with the brand and the legacy that he's built under the John Cena name. So I think that's fine. Another big piece of wrestling news is coming out of Ring of Honor, and that is Moose has confirmed his departure from Ring of Honor. He confirmed it on Twitter, and also, if I from understand, he did it also at a Ring of Honor show where he thanked everybody for the last 2 years, all the memories, and he said he'll see you down the road. So it doesn't mean he'll be gone forever. Might just be taking some time off, or he could be going somewhere else. It's been rumored that TNA has offered him a contract, that WWE has also shown some interest. So who knows? Might see Moose pop up somewhere, either in TNA or in WWE. But let's get into a new segment on the show that I've been wanting to do, and that is the Ruffin Rumor Roundup. However, keep in mind, these are rumors, so take them as a grain of salt. They aren't necessarily always true. If something I say doesn't turn out to be true, don't come back and bash me in the comments and say, you were fucking wrong. It's rumors. It's rumors. It's all fun. We're just going to talk about some stuff that's out there and kind of maybe weigh in on the possibility of it being true. First off, it is still expected that Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins will be top stars on Raw, and John Cena and AJ Styles will be the top stars on SmackDown after the brand expansion on July 19th. This is to be at least at first. I think that's about right. What they do with Roman Reigns after he comes back from his 30-day wellness violation suspension is anybody's guess. I've seen numerous reports that Vince says he wants to do a redemption thing where he pretty much just wants to say, okay, you had your suspension, good little soldier, tap him on the head, and then send him out there and try to get him over again. And then I've also seen reports that they might actually finally turn him heel at Battleground. I think that's the smart way to go. He works better as a heel. He worked great as a heel in NXT, and I think he'll work great as a heel here. However, they really want to try to get him over and make him the new family-friendly face of the company. So, who knows? Vince will always do what Vince wants to do. If Vince wants to do a redemption angle, they will do a redemption angle. If you don't like it, you're fired. So, there you go. According to Wrestling Observer, WWE may be exploring a way of doing a New Day versus Wyatt compound match, meaning it will be out of arena. Very similar to the way that TNA did with the final deletion with Jeff and Matt Hardy, which if you have not seen is so bad that it's wonderful. You should go catch it. It's on YouTube. You can find the whole thing there. Just put it this way, there's a part of it where Matt Hardy is riding a riding lawnmower while flying drones remote controlled. Yeah, I said that. That was part of a wrestling match. So, there you go. That Finn Balor's debut is imminent, quote unquote. Now, this has been a topic of much discussion and much anticipation by a lot of smart fans. And that is that when Finn Balor will show up on the main roster. Now, I do not read the NXT spoilers when they do their tapings. Now, when they started building the Shinsuke Nakamura Finn Balor feud in NXT, I figured that would ride until TakeOver Brooklyn, but they actually are doing it next week on NXT. So that could mean that Balor is being written off of television, leading to the draft on the 19th. So who knows, really, what happens there. It is supposed to be, quote-unquote, sooner rather than later, and by the end of July at the latest is what's being reported now. So we'll see. I think he comes up as part of the brand expansion and part of the draft. That's honestly where I think that's going to happen. Also, Neville is rumored that he will make his return to WWE television next week, and that his first program will be against Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho fought at Beast in the East in Tokyo last year, and it was a great match. They were great. They worked great together. They were both working face at the time, so it'll maybe be a little bit more interesting with Jericho playing heel. If you don't remember, it was in a match against Jericho that Neville got himself injured. So we'll have to see kind of where they go with that. I'll be happy to see Neville back. I miss Neville. I'm a huge Neville fan, so I'll be glad to see him back. Also, Zack Ryder. It looks like he's actually going to get a program with Rusev for the U.S. title, which will include a match at Battleground. Does this mean that we'll put the U.S. title on Zack Ryder? Possibly. Could be. Who knows? I don't know. I think I like that. I like Rusev with the U.S. title. Personally, I want them to put it on Titus O'Neil. Titus has been a hard-working guy for the company. Despite his 60-day suspension for grabbing Vince McMahon's arm, he does a lot of stuff with charity. He does a lot of stuff with like father organizations and family organizations. He's a hardworking guy, and I think he deserves a title run with the U.S. Championship. I think it'd be a great championship for him. So, if anything, that would be what I would want out of that. It's been rumored that no matter what the outcome tonight at UFC 200, it is that Brock Lesnar is not supposed to lose to Randy Orton at SummerSlam. If you haven't heard yet, I could have put this in news, I guess, earlier, but Randy Orton is going to be Brock Lesnar's opponent for SummerSlam coming up in August 21st to be exact, and personally, I'm glad to see Randy Orton back. I love Randy Orton. I'm a big Randy Orton fan. However, with a guy that has a neck injury and a shoulder injury, is it the smartest idea to put him in a match with a guy whose gimmick is to suplex him all over the ring? I don't think that's a smart move. They could obviously do it different ways. Everybody's going to want suplexes. I don't know how many Randy's going to be willing to take. Coming off his injury, he doesn't want to take the risk of hurting himself and possibly it being career-ending. So who knows? Obviously, you could end it with a Kimura lock, or Randy can just take an F5. However you want to do the finish on it. Hopefully, though, they kind of protect and watch after Randy and don't let him take 16 suplexes and possibly end his career, or put him back on the injury list somewhere that WWE doesn't need a lot more people after we just got out of that whole injury spell that we had all the way through WrestleMania season. Vince McMahon rumored to return to Raw this coming up week, and it's being done in part to help jumpstart viewership ahead of the draft and SmackDown moving to live on Tuesday night. They'll probably tease something like Vince will be controlling Raw or whatever, but anytime Vince is on TV, I get excited. I love TV Vince. He's one of my favorite things about Raw and SmackDown is when Vince is on TV. So personally, anytime the chairman's on TV, I'm happy. And your final rumor for this week, the wrestlers all involved in the Cruiserweight Classic will apparently have to make weight every match they partake in throughout the tournament. If you're unaware of how they're doing this, they're taping it in waves. They've taped the first wave and it's aired. And then the second wave is going to be taped, I think, sometime next week, and then it'll air, then third, then the final, and they're going to tape them and then air them later, very much like NXT does, except they're just doing the one episode at a time. And so that makes a lot of sense for the guys to all have to make weight for each taping, because some of them will have weeks in between. If you're fighting the first round, like this first wave, you may not fight again until the third taping. So that's a good week or two for you to eat a little bit too much over 4th of July or something like that. So you got to make weight, and you got to make sure that you are still under, I think it's 205, I think is the limit. So that, matter of fact, when they weighed in, there was 2 or 3 guys that weighed in right at 205. So if those guys made it through the first bracket into the second, then they may have they may have to do some moving around or some replacement or some weight cutting to get these guys underweight. So who knows? I'm excited about the Cruiserweight Classic. I hope you guys are too. I think it's a good thing to happen on the network over the summer when really we have nothing going on outside of Battleground and SummerSlam. But, Raw and SmackDown usually take a hit during the summer. I think that's why they're doing the brand expansion or the brand split in the draft while they're doing it. I think it's just, a good way to get the ratings back up for the summer. So I think this is a good thing for the Cruiserweight Classic. I think this is a great thing for the network for it to be happening when it's happening. I'm super excited about it, and I hope you guys are too. But anyway, that is your news and your rumor roundup for the week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you had a great time listening to the show. Hopefully I didn't sound too loopy and too talky, because like I said, it is now 10 till 2, so I am very tired and I'm going to go to bed. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time, see ya.